What's going on, guys? Red Bull Tanker and Airsoft Commando coming back with Korea 625 War Operation Minden. This is now turn 5. I already did North Korea, so now we're on to, we'll start with South Korea. So let's see here. You saved 2 from last turn and you're collecting 17. So South Korea will have 19 to spend this turn.
Okay, so that will be 3 infantry, 3 artillery,
Okay.
which will bring me to... No, I can't do that. Hold on. I can do
Let's see.
2 artillery, 2 infantry, and then 5 left. Give me a light tank.
I think
Do
lights
the
are.
light tanks 5? Are they 6?
There's light tanks are 6.
What about mech?
Mech, I believe, Mech is 4, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check that real quick while I. No, mech infantry is 5, so that'll zero you out. So.
What's the mech hit?
Mech is 4. Mech hits on 4s.
Whereas infantry hits on 2... Oh,
3.
wait a minute. Hits on a 3.
Yeah.
I don't really need a mech. You know what? Just do 2 artillery, 3 infantry, and we'll save the 2.
Okay.
For now.
So 2 artillery. Whoops. 2 artillery, 3 infantry, save 2 again.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Does South Korea have any combat?
Yes. They are going to do a full attack. With how many supply do I have here?
You
have
have
4 total?
you have 4 total supply in Cheonan.
Actually, give me 2. The save 2. Give me 2 supply.
Okay.
I am going to take the 4 supply and all the South Korean forces, and we're attacking Incheon.
Okay. You have nothing to like. The supply will support you, but you can't carry it. So when you win, the supply won't go with you because you need trucks to carry.
That's fine. I'll have the Navy drop it off.
Okay. All right. So that's going to be. Well, all right. So let's see here. So it's going to be following the rules. So
I get
first
to
off,
pre-fire.
yep, that'll be. Wait, how many artillery was that? That was 5. So 1 second. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here is 5 dice for you.
Oh yay! For me,
Yes.
you shouldn't have. All right. So, hold on. How do we make them jumping? Is that spacebar?
First it's R to make them jump, and then you can just pick them up and then you can just pick them up and throw them. Looking for 4s, and there it is. You got. Oh my God! Really? you get the 1-4. All right, so that will kill my guy on Incheon. The South Koreans will take it at no loss because artillery bombardments are like shore bombardments for the Navy. This guy, he will lose. So you still spent that supply.
Yeah, so I have 3 remaining.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. 1 second. And then before I forget, let's fix the scoreboard. So 1, 2, you're back to 19. Oh, wait. And then I'm down to 39. Yes.
Okay.
So 19 to 39. And that is... Okay, and then, first, I take it you're going to deploy your guys at Cheonan.
I keep forgetting that I actually get to do that same turn with South Korea.
Well, remember before too, like infantry was always able to deploy right away. It was just the original rules was basically anything but infantry. Everything but infantry had to initially wait the 1 turn, which I know you and I have had discussions about. I think I like in some cases it feels like it needs to go back to that kind of.
I think it should just be across the board because while
Well, I
I
mean, I don't
understand
know about
Korea,
infantry because they're
they're waiting on U.S.
homegrown.
equipment too.
Oh, that's
Everything
true.
South Korea is U.S. equipment.
That's true.
There is
That's
no
act.
home. There's no homegrown arms industry in South Korea at this time.
That's very true. That's very true. Okay, so now we'll go up to China. Oh wait, sorry. Did you pass turn?
I did.
Yes, you
Yep.
did. I deployed your forces. Okay, so you saved. So you zeroed out. So up
I
to
did 0 out.
China, I saved 2, gained 10 for 12. One thing I forgot to do at the end of the North Korean turn, I forgot to change the soul dice to 1 to show that I have held soul for 1 complete turn now. We have to get to 3 before we can start rolling for Chinese entry, unless the Allies decide to cross the parallel at some point, or the U.S. gets frosty and decides to use atomic weapons.
I
Which,
don't think it'll come to that.
well, as we've always discussed, you after reading Harry Turtledove, you're kind of burnt out on atomic weapons.
Yes. Yes. To anyone who wants to read that series, stop at like book 3. You don't need to know the rest.
No, stop halfway through book 3. So
Halfway through book
yeah.
3.
So anyone who's curious what we're talking about, so we're talking about the Harry Turtledove, the Hot Wars series. It's pretty decent. It basically talks about how the battle at the Chosen Reservoir goes poorly for the United States, and so like the First Marine Division and all the American forces that fight there are completely wiped out. Like Chosen's just a complete disaster, which further feeds that the rest of the Chinese entry into the war is just a disaster for the Allies. And then MacArthur is able to convince Truman to use atomic weapons, which then spills over into World War III, where the Soviets are invading Germany and Korea kind of becomes a backwater. But so the series is good until you get halfway through the third book. Then it kind of just stops being good. So if
There's
anyone,
literally a nuke every chapter. It just gets like it stops being horrifying and just goes, "Oh, yay!
oh
Another
yay,
city wiped off."
yep.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
All right, so my purchase for China this turn. Um, I think my purchase this turn. I'm gonna go big here. I'm gonna get a jet. Try and get a
High,
jet.
high spender. All right.
Yeah, I'm zeroing out. So China still does not have combat. I do have non-combat, so I'm going to start consolidating the Chinese militaries into their zones. I will chip all this out later, but basically everything is coming over here. I'll have to make it. I'll have to squeeze it in a little
You
bit.
stay on your side of the Yalu.
Well, don't mess with my friends.
They struck first. I like to point that out.
Okay,
We're
so I'm
merely
moving.
defending.
Like I said, I'll chip all this out later. So the Shenyang forces are going to Anshan. My Tongua forces, actually, I think I'll keep those there. If anything, what I'll do, I'll just have some fun with it. I'll chip these out later. So we'll make the Anshan forces the 38th Army. The Tongua forces will, or I think that's Tongua. Yeah, Tongua will be under the 20th Army. And these forces over here in the territory that I can never say, Bado Jiang?
It's best
Don't know.
just not to say it.
Yeah,
Just that territory.
that territory will be flagged under the 12th Army.
I think it's time to address a huge historical inaccuracy that's just can't be avoided, and that's the fact that your Chinese forces are highly mobile.
Yes.
To anyone who's trying to figure this out compared to history, the way this game's played, China is almost never going to enter the war with the Americans on their doorstep. So in order to actually be useful in this game, they have to be mobile and actually get to the fight.
Yes. Now
But that's
again,
just the nature of
yeah.
this.
Well, and again, like up here in the northern parts of Korea, you do get those free 18 infantry that will spawn right away. But even then, Airsoft Commando brings up a good point. It's that the main bulk of the Chinese army is just it unless to pretty much get them into the game, they have to be more mobile than what they were to actual history, and that kind of comes with the and that's kind of some of the hard parts about some of these games is that like you want to be historical, but there are just points where you kind of got to let you kind of have to sacrifice you have to sacrifice historical and accuracy to make the game work.
That's where I actually agree with the old rules, the original rules, is that either it's our rule of they hold Seoul and China enters, or it should be if the Chinese infantry hidden in North Korea get contacted.
I think that
Those should be the two entries because otherwise, yeah,
well
I can't
well
cross the 38th at all.
yeah well and I mean also well I mean if you're coming anywhere close to the Chinese forces in northern Korea, you've crossed the 38th, which means that China comes in anyways. So like if you did a landing up here in Hungnam, China comes into the game because you're over the 38th parallel now.
Right, but okay, so for example, I can't take my navy and raid that reinforcement column coming out of Pyongyang right now. I could go to Season 7 and with
Oh,
bombardment, aircraft, and landing, I could wreck that force
yes.
and put up blockers so that you can't really reinforce for a couple turns. I can't do that now. Is my big issue. I think the 38th crossing is too strict of a condition.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that might be something because obviously, like historically, as soon as the Allies crossed the parallel, that was when China really started sneaking people across the river to get ready to ambush the Allies as they went north.
Sure,
Um,
but you see where Chosen is, it's on their doorstep. They didn't actually attack until the US were that far.
right, right. No,
Even if you want to
that's
say
true.
I crossed the 38th and that starts like a timer of sorts, or that starts its own set of rolls, I'm okay with that, I suppose. But
That,
the
th-
guaranteed entry as soon as crossing is, I don't know if I concur.
I think doing it in rolls, kind of like how Soul is, that might work.
But that should only exist as long as troops remain there. Like if I sit there and raid and then the very next turn I leave, you shouldn't be able to continue rolling. And actually, it should be one full turn. So like if I leave the very next turn, you shouldn't be able to roll. I suppose would be the way I would see it.
I don't know
Because if
about
it's just a
that.
raid, I don't think China's declaring war over a raid. It has to be an actual permanent presence. China wants
Okay.
the buffer. They don't so much care if North Korea wins or loses. They just want that buffer,
Well, I mean, in a
right?
sense, that is kind of them caring if North Korea wins. They
Well,
like,
let me put it this way: they don't care how well or how well North Korea wins or loses. They don't care how many North Korean troops are killed. They just want their buffer zone.
okay, I definitely see what I definitely see what you're saying. That's definitely an interesting. That's definitely an interesting point, and yeah, I do see what you mean though. Like, kind of like you are kind of limited by this sort of hard crossing. Um, yeah, I don't know. Definitely, I would say definitely something to think about.
Yeah, something to consider.
Yeah,
I want to hit that supply column so bad because it's an easy target.
yeah,
I should say easy. It'd be a fight, but it'd be a worthy fight.
that's true. That's true. Okay,
But yes,
so yeah. All right.
apologies everyone.
No, that's okay. I think that's kind of the fun. At least I think that's kind of the more interesting fun part about doing this over TT, like over computer and tabletop, compared to us like playing on an actual board. Because a lot of the time, you and I aren't always together when we're doing it on like the physical board, so we can't have these conversations during turns. Whereas I think this at least allows us to talk while we're playing, kind of get
Indeed.
definitely give the viewers something to listen to as we kind of go about this. But so, okay, that was all right. So I deployed my fighter. Okay, I'm ready to. Yes, I'm ready to pass turn to the UN.